convoy of Taliban bomb makers crossing open ground and a Black Hawk already turning on to intercept heading. The window to stop them is measured in minutes. The border was close, and SEAL Team 6 is about to remind the Taliban that switching to daylight didn't make them invisible, it made them easier to find. What you are about to witness are the 5 most intense SEAL Team 6 operations ever captured on combat camera Black Hawk pursuits, compound raids under fire, and moments where the mission nearly died before it started. This is SEAL Team 6 at its most violent, most relentless, and most human. June 2009, Paktika Province, Afghanistan. The bomb makers are getting smarter. For weeks, Red Squadron has owned the night Black Hawks screaming low through the dark, dismantling IED networks before they reach the Pakistan border. But someone inside the Taliban's chain figured it out. They start moving in daylight, betting the SEALs won't launch until dark. They bet wrong. Drone operators at FOB Sharon clocked the pattern first. Same vehicles, same routes, same push toward the Pakistani border just under a different sun. The footage is clean. Targets confirm the window is closing. Red Squadron gets the call. The MH-60 Blackhawks spin up at FOB Sharon, miniguns locked, operators strapped in. The mission is simple and brutal. Intercept the convoy before it crosses the border. Because once it crosses, the bomb makers vanish, the network rebuilds, and American soldiers start dying again on roads packed with their product. The helicopters push east, hugging the ridgelines. Below, the vehicles roll on confident, unhurried. They don't know the sky is already full. What happens next? When the miniguns open up and a bomber makes one desperate final decision, is the moment that defines this entire operation. The Black Hawks come in low and fast, and the minigun fire starts before the drivers register the sound. At 4,000 rounds per minute, the M134 doesn't punch holes, it erases. The lead vehicle swerves hard into the dirt. The second locks its brakes. Dust and debris explode across the road. Both trucks stop cold, short of the border. The bombers scatter. One runs for the tall grass along the roadside. The drone overhead tracks him clearly. He's moving fast, crouching low, then he stops. He detonates. The blast tears through the grass. On the combat camera footage, the thermal signature blooms white, then dims. What remains confirms what the operators already knew: he was wearing a suicide vest the entire time. The premature detonation is unambiguous. Arms separated, the grass is still. Red Squadron moves in to secure the scene. No SEAL casualties. The network's couriers, their product, their route stopped here, on this road, on this camera. That is the minigun stop. But the night isn't finished. Intelligence from the intercept reveals the network is bigger than one convoy. Tomorrow, a second element will be waiting, and this time they've set up on high ground. The second night hits harder. Intelligence from the first convoy points to a larger Cell 2 vehicles, different routes, same destination. Red Squadron splits its Blackhawks to cover both. The moment the second element lands and moves uphill, the hillside opens up. Entrenched fighters. Elevated position. Disciplined fire. The first SEAL element is pinned downhill. Rounds cutting the dirt around them. No clean angle upward. Every second on that slope costs them the initiative. O'Neill doesn't wait. He pulls one SEAL in the EOD tech, breaks away from the pinned element, and starts moving laterally, circling wide around the ridgeline in the dark, suppressed rifles up. No close air support. No announcement. Just 3 men moving fast through broken Afghan terrain while their teammates absorb fire below. They come over the top. The fighters never hear it coming. Suppressed rounds. Controlled, deliberate, combat camera captures thermal signatures dropping one by one on the hilltop. The pinned element's radio goes quiet. Then it crackles, position secured. That is the flanking kill. But O'Neill's element isn't done. When you clear fighters in an IED network, everybody is a potential second weapon, and the EOD tech is about to find out why. The hilltop is clear, but cleared doesn't mean safe. The moment O'Neill's element calls position secured, the radio crackles again, FWIA. Friendly wounded in action. The clock is now running in 2 directions, medevac inbound, and an EOD tech working methodically across every body on that ridgeline. This is the part combat footage rarely shows, not the shooting, what comes after. The EOD tech moves body to body, hands, chest, waistline. Every one of these men was a bomb maker. Every one potentially wore a secondary device wired to take someone down on final clearance. He knows it. He works anyway. Deliberate, disciplined, no shortcuts. The cameras capture it all thermal, wide angle, uncut, one by one. He clears them. By the time the Black Hawks circle back for extract, the network running bomb components toward Pakistan is finished, not scattered. Finished. The drone that clocked their pattern weeks earlier has watched the last node go cold. That closes the loop on the Taliban bombers' chase. But if you think 3 snipers on a ship's fantail staring through porthole-sized windows at an ocean that won't stop moving is less intense than that ridgeline, you haven't met what comes next. April 12, 2009, Indian Ocean. 4 Somali pirates are locked inside a 28-foot enclosed lifeboat with one hostage, Captain Richard Phillips of the container ship Maersk Alabama, a K-47s. Nowhere to go, and they know it. USS Bainbridge closes in and takes the lifeboat under tow, a single line connecting a warship to a bobbing orange capsule and open ocean swell. It looks like control. It isn't. Not yet. For 4 days, negotiators talk. The pirates don't move. Phillips stays inside that sealed hull, hands bound, watching the portholes. Then DEVGRU Red Squadron snipers arrive parachute insertion directly into the operational area. No announcement, no press. They move to the fantail of Bainbridge and go still. The tow line holds the lifeboat at roughly 25 to 30 meters. In calm water, that's a manageable shot. But this is the Indian Ocean. The swell doesn't stop. The lifeboat pitches and rolls with every wave cycle, and those portholes, the only angles to the pirates inside, appear and disappear in seconds. That is the setup. 3 targets, 3 snipers, 1 tow line keeping the geometry alive. But making that shot means waiting for something the ocean controls, not them. The ocean doesn't care about your shot window. The tow line holds the lifeboat at 25 to 30 meters, close enough to read the hull markings. Close enough that every wave cycle becomes the enemy. The Indian Ocean swell lifts the lifeboat, drops it, twists it sideways. Those portholes open for maybe 2 seconds. Then they vanish. Inside that hull, Captain Richard Phillips is alive. 3 pirates are armed. 1 has an AK pressed against his back. The 3 Red Squadron snipers on Bainbridge's fantail lock onto their assigned portholes and go into a rhythm watching the wave, tracking the rise, finding the window inside the window. When the swell peaks and the lifeboat steadies for that fraction of a second, the geometry lines up. Not long, not reliably, but enough. This isn't marksmanship at a range. Every variable roll, pitch, salt spray, fading light is stacked against them. 1 shooter fires early, 1 pirate moves, and Phillips does. The authorization is simple. 1 command. All 3 fire simultaneously, or none of them do. That is the constraint. That is what makes what happens next either catastrophic failure or something the U.S. military had never pulled off before. The command comes over the radio. All 3 snipers press simultaneously. 3 shots. 1 second. 3 pirates down through 3 portholes on a pitching lifeboat in the Indian Ocean. Captain Richard Phillips, bound and bleeding from minor injuries, is pulled through the hatch and onto a rigid inflatable within minutes, alive, unharmed beyond what 5 days of captivity does to a man. The Navy confirms the metrics. 3 targets, 3 kills, 0 American casualties, single authorization. No pirate fired a round, no hostage was touched by the volley. The photographs hit the front pages the next morning. April 13, 2009, a visibly shaken Phillips stands on the deck of USS Bainbridge wrapped in a blanket, and for the first time, the American public sees what SEAL Team 6 can actually do when the geometry is right and the operators are cold enough to wait for it. That is the operation that moved DEVGRU from classified footnote to household name. 2 years later, that same unit, that same reputation, board stealth Black Hawks again, this time for a compound in Pakistan. But between Bainbridge and Abbottabad, something will happen in Wardak province that the institution will never fully recover from. August 6, 2011, Wardak Province, Afghanistan. This is the operation that will become the single deadliest day in DEVGRU history, and it starts the way most catastrophes do, with a routine call. Rangers on the ground in Tangi Valley have a Taliban commander cornered. They call for quick reaction force. The answer is Extortion 17, a single CH-47D Chinook, no suppression package running ahead of it, no second ship riding cover. The load manifest alone should stop the mission. 17 DEVGRU Gold Squadron operators, 5 Army aircrew, 7 Afghan commandos, a military working dog, 38 souls on one airframe. That is a non-standard load. That is a single ship insertion into a valley where enemy fighters are already active, already alert, already watching the sky. The pilots of the 158th Aviation Regiment throttle up. The rotors bite the dark air. Nobody on that aircraft has any reason to believe this flight is different from the hundreds of QRF runs they have already survived. Down in the valley below, in a mud-walled compound 220 meters from the landing zone, a single insurgent shoulders an RPG-7V and waits. Extortion 17 descends toward the valley floor at 150 feet. The round leaves the tube. From 220 meters, an insurgent inside a mud-walled compound tracks the Chinook's descent and squeezes the trigger on an RPG-7V. The warhead crosses that distance in under a second. It strikes the rear rotor assembly at 150 feet above the valley floor. At 150 feet, there is no altitude to recover, no time to autoritate, no second chance. The aircraft inverts. Witnesses on the ground later describe it as instantaneous, a flash, a rotation, a fireball. The AR-15-6 investigation confirms the sequence in hard clinical language: impact, structural failure, ground contact. 4 seconds from strike to impact. 38 people gone before the echo of the detonation clears the valley walls. 17 of them were DEVGRU operators, the single largest loss in SEAL Team 6 history, compressed into 4 seconds of darkness above the Tangi River. That is the cost of a single RPG-7V fired by a single man who knew exactly when to pull the trigger. But the question that Gold Star families would spend the next decade demanding answered wasn't how Extortion 17 was shot down. It was who told the enemy it was coming. The Dawdi never officially named the interpreters aboard Extortion 17. That is what broke the families open. Within weeks of the crash, Gold Star parents Billy and Karen Vaughn, Charles Strange, Doug Hamburger stood before cameras and said the same thing. The White House announcement after Neptune's spear, the one that named SEAL Team 6 specifically, had handed the Taliban a target. 3 months later, 17 of those operators were dead in a Chinook over Wardak Province. The AR-15-6 investigation found no evidence of deliberate compromise, but the families pointed to something the report couldn't explain away. The Afghan interpreters aboard had not been individually vetted against standard protocol, and their identities were never fully accounted for in the official record. Charles Strange, whose son Michael died on that aircraft, testified publicly that the investigation had been shaped to protect institutional decisions made above the operator level. The Pentagon disputed every claim. The fracture never healed. Gold Star parents called it betrayal. The Dawdi called it classified. That gap between what the families demanded and what the institution released became the deepest wound DEVGRU had ever suffered off the battlefield. The darkest chapter in Special Operations history, though, didn't begin in Afghanistan. It began in the Somali Alley 18 months before SEAL Team 6 even existed as the world knew it. October 3, 1993, Mogadishu, Somalia. The briefing said 30 minutes. Get in, grab ID'd lieutenants from the Olympic Hotel, get out before the city knows you were there. 90 minutes later, everything is on fire. At 16:20 local, an RPG tears through the tail rotor of Super 61 MH-60 Black Hawk, piloted by Chief Warrant Officer Cliff Wolcott. The aircraft corkscrews, rotor blades shredding, and slams into a narrow alley 4 blocks from the target building. There are survivors in the wreckage. Task Force Ranger Delta operators, Army Rangers, and DEVGRU assault elements who had just secured the hotel now have a new mission nobody planned for: hold that crash site. In the middle of a city mobilizing by the thousands, within minutes, Militia fighters are pouring through every alley, every doorway, every rooftop. The 30-minute snatch operation has become a siege with no defined perimeter and no relief column inbound. That is the moment Objective Bull stops being a raid and becomes the longest night in DEVGRU history. And it is about to get worse because when no ground force can reach the second crash site, 2 men will volunteer to go in alone. Super 64 goes down 3 miles from the first crash site. Pilot Mike Durant is alive in the wreckage, badly injured, surrounded by closing militia. No ground convoy can reach him. The streets between are a kill zone. Master Sergeant Gary Gordon and Sergeant First Class Randall Shughart, DEVGRU snipers circling above in a little bird, request permission to insert. Command denies them twice. The third request goes through. They fast rope in alone. 2 men, personal weapons. Hundreds of fighters converging through the alleyways below. Gordon takes a position outside the fuselage, buying time with his sniper rifle until his ammunition runs dry. He switches to his pistol. He is killed fighting toward the perimeter. Shughart pulls Durant from the cockpit, hands him Gordon's rifle, and holds the outer ring alone. He is killed seconds later. Durant survives, captured, beaten but alive because 2 men chose to go in knowing they weren't coming back out. Both received the Medal of Honor posthumously, the first awarded since Vietnam. That is what Gary Gordon and Randy Shughart left behind on those streets. The cost of those 15 hours in Mogadishu didn't end with 2 Medals of Honor. The numbers from the after-action review would force an entire nation to reckon with what had just happened. When the last gun went quiet on the streets of Mogadishu, the count began. 18 Americans killed, 73 wounded. 15 hours of continuous urban combat against an estimated 500 to 1,000 Somali militia fighters. All of it documented, all of it on camera. The footage moved fast. Crowds dragging American bodies through the streets aired on CNN within hours. Washington saw it the same moment the public did. Within weeks, President Clinton ordered a full withdrawal from Somalia. The mission meant to pressure ID's network instead became the image that ended the entire operation, a direct line from a single afternoon raid to a complete policy reversal at the highest level of the United States government. Task Force Ranger accomplished its tactical objective. The ADIT lieutenants were captured. By any narrow definition, it succeeded, but the strategic cost buried that fact for a generation. That is what Objective Bull left behind, not just bodies, not just medals, but a political shockwave that rewrote American willingness to commit ground forces in complex urban environments. But if Mogadishu exposed what happens when a mission goes wrong inside a compound of streets, the next operation on this list shows what SEAL Team 6 looks like when a mission goes wrong inside an actual compound wall. May 2nd, 2011. The first stealth Black Hawk comes in low over the compound wall, and it clips it. The tail rotor loses authority. The aircraft pitches hard, drops fast, and hard lands inside the perimeter right in front of the building the operators are supposed to enter from the outside. In 1 second, the entire insertion geometry is gone. This is the exact failure mode that destroyed Operation Eagle Claw in 1980. Helicopter malfunction on insert. Mission collapse. 31 years later, same problem, same darkness, same heartbeat. But DEVGRU had trained this contingency until it was reflex. The operators are out of that aircraft before the rotors stop moving. No hesitation, no abort call. The second Black Hawk lands outside the compound on schedule. The assault continues. Mission Commander Vice Admiral William McRaven receives the crash report and doesn't redirect the element. The plan adapts in real time. The compound wall that clipped the helicopter is now inside the perimeter. The wreckage will be destroyed before dawn. None of that stops what comes next, because what happens inside that compound over the next 38 minutes is the reason this operation exists on this list at all. The assault is already in motion before the dust settles on that wrecked helicopter. First element stacks on the guest house. Door breach. 2 men killed on the ground floor. They move upward a staircase, a narrow hallway, another room. A woman shoved forward as a human shield. The operators pull her aside without breaking the push. Second floor, 2 more killed. Third floor, Robert O'Neill, the same operator who flanked that ridgeline in Afghanistan, rounds the doorframe and sees a tall man in a darkened room. 2 rounds center mass, 1 to the head. Osama bin Laden drops. Elapsed time from first breach, under 20 minutes. But they don't leave. They work the compound for 18 more minutes. Hard drives, thumb drives, documents, phones, and intelligence hall the Senate Intelligence Committee later describes as the single largest collection of terrorist planning material ever seized in one location. 5 personnel killed, 3 floors cleared, 38 minutes total on target, 0 SEAL casualties. The aircraft wreckage is demolished before dawn. The element extracts clean. But within 16 hours, something happens back in Washington that will haunt DEVGRU far longer than anything that happened inside that compound. The Bin Laden mission ends in 38 minutes of controlled violence. What follows in Washington takes less than 16 hours and the damage lasts years. Leon Panetta's office confirms the unit. The White House press briefing names SEAL Team 6 directly. By morning, it is on every network on Earth. Doug Hamburger, whose son Army Staff Sergeant Patrick Hamburger died in the Extortion 17 crash 3 months later, testified before Congress with a sentence that cuts through every official justification. In releasing their identity, they put a target on their backs. He wasn't speaking in abstractions. Signals intelligence picked up chatter within days of the announcement. Al-Qaeda affiliates and Taliban commanders broadcast the unit designation across encrypted channels. DEVGRU operators reported family members being researched online. Cover identities were reconstructed. Then, on August 6, 2011, exactly 94 days after Neptune Spear Extortion 17 goes down in Tangi Valley with 17 DEVGRU operators aboard. Whether that shootdown was direct retaliation has never been officially confirmed. The families have never stopped asking. That is the cost of an announcement nobody ordered anyone to make. But while the fallout burns through Washington, something else is happening quietly. The footage itself. The footage exists. DoD confirmed ISR drone footage captured the compound perimeter throughout the assault. That footage was released. The Situation Room photograph went public within hours. The world saw the imagery and accepted it as the full record. It was not the full record. Helmet cam footage recorded by DEVGRU operators during all 38 minutes inside that compound was reviewed internally. Senate Armed Services Committee hearing records confirm it was assessed at the classified level. It has never been publicly declassified. With those cameras captured on the 3 floors, the exact sequence of rooms cleared. The final moments before the 3rd floor shot remains locked. That gap is its own story, not because the footage was destroyed, because it exists, was reviewed, and was deliberately withheld. The institution decided what the public needed to see and drew the line there. Whether that decision was operational security, legal exposure, or political calculation has never been formally answered. What was released shaped history. What was kept shapes questions that will never close. That is Neptune Spear, not the White House version, but the full weight of what was filmed, what was decided, and what the men who were there still cannot say publicly. That is SEAL Team 6. If that Black Hawk Wall clip in Abbottabad didn't stop DEVGRU, nothing will. Drop a comment that the operators make the right call pushing through after the crash, or did command roll the dice with American lives? Like and subscribe if you believe the answer matters.